what were your thoughts when you saw the news that Earps was leaving and then to PSG?
Well, firstly, all of what's going on in the transfer window so far this summer would be difficult enough to keep up with if I was on the same time zone. Being 8 hours behind is like waking up at 6 a.m. and being like, where's my phone? I need to figure out what the hell has happened over the last couple of hours. We are not on the ball. We are in and around the ball right now, okay? We're on the ball over here,
girls
but
the
news isn't breaking our time. Yeah, girls on the other side of the world on the ball. Yeah, so that's been tough enough. Mary Earps thing, like, I think we all kind of knew she was going to leave. Mm-hmm. PSG, a little bit of a surprise, maybe. She'll get Champions League football potentially. That's still not absolutely guaranteed, right? Don't they come in the second round? So, let's hope that goes well for her, because we've seen other players leave Man United for Champions League football, and that has kind of backfired slightly. I think PSG has had its own chaotic problems in the past. Perhaps that's come together now and it's less chaotic. They've obviously made a very nice offer to her. She's played outside of Europe before, so at least she has that experience, which I think is really valuable. I think the losing her on a free thing is just such a... I don't know, it's just bad business. It's bad business. I don't know if there's an arrogance of thinking they could have hung on to her and she would have re-signed, or recognising that likely it wasn't going to happen, shouldn't we cash in? So... I hope that this kind of thing is phased out in women's football and you're starting to realise the value of players, because otherwise we talk a lot about, is the women's football making money? Is it making money back? Where are the opportunities where we can make some money back? If you're just going to be letting players go on a free, that is bad business.
Absolutely. And I think... there kind of sort of seemed to be reports kind of previously that Mary Earps was kind of keen to stay at United. Obviously, she's had such a long history with the club. She's done so much with them, building them from absolutely nothing to getting into, the Champions League, getting that FA Cup win last season, getting the first bit of silverware. And she was a massive part of the journey from 2018. I remember playing against her in the Championship, like on this raggedy-arse pitch in the arse end of nowhere, like Lauren James storming through everyone. But like,
what a claim to fame.
Literally that, just being I touched the same blades of grass as Mary Earps at one point in my career, and I'll take that as an accolade. And I did steal a handful of grass, but that's
she
sad.
Probably still says the same thing herself when she has conversations.
It's weird, I've not heard her mention it in interviews actually, which is
but when she listens to pods and stuff, she's probably like, I was on the same pitch as her.
What an omission. But I think it was really telling actually, the statement that she released from after she'd announced that she'd left. She said the club is just about to undergo a period of transition, and unfortunately I don't think it aligns with the timing of where I'm at in my career. This kind of leads us nicely on to kind of where the club had decided to take itself. It's been quite a controversial summer for them. The men's team have kicked the women's team out of their own building, whilst renovation work was sort of being done at the men's training centre. There were reports that the women might be sort of rehoused at St George's Park as a temporary base, but I think that only seemed to kick off once the backlash kind of started. I don't think that was necessarily part of the initial plans. And then obviously Sir Jim Ratcliffe kind of getting himself into some hot water by admitting that United haven't really done any planning on the women's team and just been focusing on resolving the issues around the men's side. I mean, amidst all that chaos, are we really surprised that someone like Earps would kind of leave? It kind of feels like, actually, given the status and level of where she is in her career, that actually she doesn't want to, spend energy and time maybe trying to fight those kind of in-house battles that sometimes go on in clubs. She wants to focus on her career, and she's a senior player. She wants to maximise the time that she's got left at that level.
I think her statement was very telling, without being really specific, but it was, you could read between the lines. And I think normally when you hear from Manchester United, they talk about being ambitious, and Mark Skinner always talks about the size of this club, how big Manchester United is, how ambitious they want to win things. And then the reality is that actually true? I mean, from everything that's come out, it's just another example and another reminder that the women's team is essentially second-class citizens in the club. They're not a priority. Isn't it a stereotype that men are bad at multitasking? I just find it crazy that Jim Ratcliffe couldn't think of about two areas of the business at the same time. Like, he doesn't necessarily have to be in absolutely every meeting. Surely he has people he can delegate to, and they can work on multi areas of the business at the same time, rather than just, we can only focus on the men's and nothing else at the same time. Doesn't sound like, it's not a great look. It doesn't sound like great kind of, business nuance. I don't know. But so that's a bit frustrating to not have even thought of it. And I think when players hear that kind of stuff coming from their own club, that will set off alarm bells. So I think, Mary going, really sad to not see her in the WSL week in, week out. We love a sweary Mary clip. You know, she gives me a bit of a Jordan Pickford vibes sometimes.
Definitely.
You know, when she makes a save and then she turns around and says, how dare you have made me make a save, god damn it. That kind of vibe. I also think Katie Zelem leaving was a real, I think, not that hit more, but I mean, Manchester United through and through, the captain, you know, I think that was a big surprise as well. So yeah, it's not looking good. It's not great when we talk about had they gone backwards a little bit, or had they just overachieved when they came second. And Mark spoke about it being a journey and a process. And I think what worries me now is this a bump in their journey, or have they just gone down the wrong track, and how is it going to end? It's a little bit concerning for sure.
But I do think, I mean, how is that going to affect the players, sort of like you were saying, in the club itself, when you're kind of you've lost Russo, you've lost Earps, you've lost Zelem, you've lost Parrish, you've lost Lucia Garcia, you've lost Ona Badjet, and you think, okay, well, those aren't just like, you know, periphery players. Those are pretty much like your main bread and butter starting 11s. Like, and you think, well, you know, in terms of the players they've got left and the kind of, I don't know, presence of some of those players, I just worry about kind of like where the club kind of goes to now. It kind of feels like they've regressed quite far. I don't know what next season's going to look like for them in terms of sort of like they're going to have to bring in quite a few new signings, I think, to kind of bolster the club and kind of keep it competing in that top 4 level. Because like you look at some of the signings, and we're going to get onto this obviously, that, you know, you're seeing sort of like Arsenal make, and you're thinking, well, they're just leagues apart now. But I mean, why do we think we're seeing so many WSL clubs kind of letting big players go on a free? Do you think it is just poor squad management, or do you think actually they're just sort of like, you know, players are naturally coming to the end of their contracts, and it hasn't worked out that they've been able to sell them earlier for whatever reason? It's hard to say.
Probably a variety of things. Yeah, like it could be things like, you know, as the game grows, there are more opportunities for players in other areas and other places. So, you know, there might be an element of a reluctance to nail things down on the dotted line in case something else crops up. You know, we're also phasing into this kind of era, if you like, of slightly longer term contracts as well, which I think is not something we've had a long history with. A lot of contracts have been really short, which can be quite frustrating. I think now as well, with players being able to command a bigger fee and that kind of thing, they're able to consider things like their families and you know, are they going to uproot everybody? So I think there's a little bit more as the game is not professionalising, it is professional, but as those kind of areas of the game grow, that's what I'm saying. I hope they're phasing them out, because it's bad business, because it's an area where you could bring in quite a bit of money, potentially. You know, the players' values are going up and up. We're seeing it. You could be, you know, even if you're selling players with only 6 months left in their contract, you'd still get a pretty decent fee for them now. So, yeah, I don't know. I think maybe it's just an area of the business side of the game that's growing, or whether it's an arrogance of clubs thinking that we can offer them enough that they'll want to stay, so we don't need to worry. Perhaps these kind of big named free players going on free will maybe wake clubs up a bit to get their negotiations a bit better. I know, like we've seen in the past at Manchester United, where they've struggled with negotiations, or they're kind of late to the game, late to the table. You know, other clubs are able to offer more. So what clubs are offering now, I guess, will need to increase as well.
But I think, I mean, maybe the saving grace for Man United, I mean, obviously with this, we saw the sort of news that Dominic Janssen sort of signed
What a random signing.
It was a very random signing. I don't think anyone really saw that coming. But yeah, I mean, quite a good calibre of signing for Man United to start filling in some of these gaps, for sure. I mean, she's got over 100 caps for the Netherlands, but I mean, also, like, kind of staying with the theme of kind of poor management. We've seen so many stories, I suppose, over the last couple of weeks, like with Reading, unfortunately, basically collapsing and going back into Tier 5. I mean, yeah, seeing the list come out from Reading Women, like the statement about all the names that were being dropped and all the players that are now going to have to go and find clubs this late into the season over summer, I think,
and was the academy.
Absolutely heartbreaking. Yeah, like thoughts, honestly, like absolute love from everyone at Upfront, because like seeing that, we saw it, you know, with Coventry, we will probably see it again. We saw something similar potentially on the horizon with Blackburn, kind of saying that they're only going to pay £100,000 for all of their squad, which equates to about £9,000 a year for the players who are supposed to be, allegedly supposed to be, on full-time professional salaries. So yeah, I think it was just it was like we always say like the game's going in the right direction, blah, blah, blah. But also like it was just such a stark, humbling couple of weeks, I think, to really realise just the fragility of the women's football ecosystem, even at the top level. Man United, Blackburn, Reading, 3 massive clubs in the elite system, pretty much not in great places at all. So yeah, it's been a tough one to take, definitely.